Hi all, let's look at another fascinating Blitz game from the recent YourNextMove Blitz in Leuven, Belgium. Baadur Jobava was playing against Magnus Carlsen. Very creative player, not having his best ever Blitz tournaments. Perhaps this time control might not fit his level of creativity. He is actually highly praised throughout the chess world as being very original and creative as a player. Okay, maybe in Blitz it's much more difficult to be creative, and sometimes you just got to be more practical. We see e4, Magnus plays c5, we have knight c3, d6. We go into a closed Sicilian. The knight usually goes there, but the intention is to go for a closed Sicilian type position like this, and it's thought to be, you know, equal here really. White's got one plan to play for f4, f5, but black has various ways to counter this. Actually, Magnus sets up a pawn to be hit here with e5 to get a clamp on d4. So you might think this setup, isn't it just playing a bit into white's hands? It's f4 now. Isn't this what white really wanted? The thing is, black gets this nice knight on d4 now. We have f5. And now a very energetic idea to try and wrest the initiative. It might not be the soundest idea, especially from an engine perspective, this next move, but I wonder if you can guess what Magnus plays here to try and tilt the balance and to try and call the shots, even at this early point in the game. This move kind of, you know, tries to get the initiative. I think that's basically, in chess terms, we call that getting the initiative. Calling the shots, creating the threats. You see, if you're the one creating the threats, then in a way you're making the decisions about how the game is going to proceed, at least for a while. So Magnus plays a move, b5 actually. It's actually represents a pawn sack. White took on d4, which does mean there's another pawn coming in, hitting dark squares here. And if we were playing one of the chess variants, you know, this might be more important, you know, this grip on dark squares, like ninja chess or something. I remember the pawns getting they're very much more important. But if g4, b4, and here it looks as though black's getting squished, doesn't it? Maybe knight d7 in light of g5. And there's sufficient play here, but it's actually technically okay for white. This is actually quite good for white. So this is a way of playing the position as well, just ignoring the knight on d4. It seems a little bit of a strange decision to take here, yeah, because this is, you know, these pawns are quite aggressive now. And now after d5, Magnus is actually starting to fully equalize. He's actually wrenching out the base of the pawn chain to be more exploitable. If you think the base of the pawn chain's here, but the actual exploitable base usually is here. But here, if that pawn's dragged there, then we've got more exposed pawn chain basically. So after g4, d takes, but white's point is to use the pin here, and Magnus unpins, allowing white to sort of recapture, it seems, fairly comfortably on e4. But we have the move g5, maybe expecting a little bit too much, maybe a little bit too optimistic, this move. Clearly, if Magnus moves the knight, I think he can fully expect, it just looks ridiculous if he moves the knight, in fact, because we'd have a completely crushed bishop. You know, if knight d5, wouldn't we have f6? Well, if we move the bishop back, that's just asking for trouble, but there's other possibilities here as well, which are actually similar to the game. So we might as well just look at the game continuation. After g5, guess what Magnus plays? If I give you 5 seconds starting from now. Okay, e3. Very good move in the circumstances, I would say, especially in the Blitz context. White took on f6, bishop takes f6. And you can see the contours of things. First of all, there's immediate threats like bishop h4 and that f2 square. It's nasty that this pawn blocks in the bishop and doesn't let white use the f2 square, so this knight might be vulnerable. In fact, all the dark squares are slightly vulnerable for white. Furthermore, with this pawn tension, a line could open on the g file, and there's also a more subtle aspect of the position. The third rank is clear. This rook can actually use that b5 already to switch in as well. So we've got potentially a switching rook, a rook here ready to use the g file, and a bishop ready to hit things on dark squares. Black is basically calling the shots here. Let's have a look now. Bishop e4, bishop g5 is played. Already black by force nearly could have played this very forceful continuation, but there's some doubt on it because say here it could be an opposite colours bishop pawning, but you know, better for black. But even so, you know, that shows how strong black's position is. Magnus plays bishop g5. We have b4, which has an idea to sort of put pressure down this diagonal. Rook b6, the rook's already switching for that third rank. a4, this is ignored because this rook wants to go to that g file. So everything that's been mentioned is happening basically. Black's really making his pieces much more aggressive and focused on white's king now. Bishop b2, bishop still blunted. Now here, this is slightly curious. Probably, technically, the best way to play this is bishop h4, and after queen f3, queen e7, black stands very well here. There's a lot of pressure, and he's looking forward to certain things happening, potentially. But in the game, we have bishop f4, and in fact, this was a great chance for white, in my view, and from the evidence it seems, this was a fantastic chance for white to do something here to kind of wrest back the initiative. What would you play with white if I give you 5 seconds? I would hope you would think the logical move is rook takes f4, because it does mean black's pawn chain, the exploitable base, is brought forward here. It's no longer e5, it's d4, and in fact after knight e2 it works a little bit like clockwork. And actually here, after queen f1, white's well back in the game from a technical point of view. He's absolutely back in the game, it seems. But he didn't play that. It's strange. That was his. Magnus seems to be tempting this, and it is playable. But no, we have instead moved queen g4, and now black's totally in the driving seat again. He kicks off here. Maybe this is in some way tempting. Maybe for threatening rook takes f4, but it's too late now. h5, forcing move. Queen f3, and now g takes f5, another forcing move. And the rook's ready for rook h6. You know, so if queen takes h5, we have rook h6. So that's no good there. We have knight takes f5, and now another forcing move, check. And now rook g8, with the threat of queen d8 to win the queen. So white's not being left alone here. Also bishop takes f5 is on the cards. This is just looking terrible now for white. You might think, hold on, the bishop's protecting the queen. What about rook takes f4? If that's your question, let me just answer it. Rook takes f4 here. Unfortunately, actually just queen takes f4. Yeah, and that rook's going to win that queen soon. So yeah, this is pretty dire actually. If queen takes this position, yeah, it's dire for white. It's all pretty dire. So white tries knight takes d4, but we have simply queen takes g2 check, and after bishop takes, the rook simply doubles, so not involved in any of white's stuff to open up this bishop, just hitting that bishop. Now finally rook takes f4, far too late. Rook takes g2 check. E takes f4, not minding any discovered check. There's no lethal discovered check. White plays a takes b5, But now king h7 and white resigns here. He can't use that rook because he will be mated with the rooks coming down. Let's have a look at this final position. So rook takes a7. This is just a mate there, so he can't play that. In fact, it seems white's getting mated in 6 even with best play after rook e1, for example, f3 with the threat of this, because that's holding that rook. Yeah, so say knight takes, bishop b7, mate in 4. I'll try and give a sensible move. Yeah, it's just collapsing for white anyway. Yeah, it's just totally collapsing. Black is threatening bishop takes f3. Yeah, it's over. f3 is the way to do it, or bishop b7 even is equally strong. And if here f3, so the rook can't ever take here because we've got this 1-2 again. And black is actually threatening after f3, rook here to mate like this, where rook takes h3. Yeah, it's an interesting game. It didn't need to be that one-sided or smooth. As far as actually might say, it didn't need to be as smooth as it seemed. White did have the opportunity to do the very timely exchange sacrifice, it seems, to try and weaken the pawn chain, but maybe not. Maybe the subtle thing about that sequence was playing maybe queen f1 to delay taking on d4 to make sure things are secure. But with the pawn chain compromise, yeah, that was the way to do it, the timely exchange sac. So it just shows in Blitz, sometimes you've got to set problems for the opponent. You've got to be able to create the threats, and having the initiative is important, and piling on the pressure. But when there's a chance, you've got to take it, otherwise it can be too late, like in this game. So unlucky there for Baadur, Jobava. Congratulations to Magnus Carlsen on this interesting game. Comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated. Thanks so much.